All right.
Assalamu alaikum.
It's a full house here, everyone. We've got Joe, the prognosticator, Adam, Allahu Akbar, and in the corner, our resident nuclear expert, Paul Neil Bow.
No, he's MAGA.
He's MAGA too. Well, these two boys are both going to be MAGA today. Joe's going to play devil's advocate. He'll be
not at all.
Israel, and I'll be Russia, just watching.
I won't be playing devil's advocate. I don't need to.
Scotty, the quiet power behind the phone, he's China. He's just, he's secretly in control of it all over there.
Still water.
He's doing nothing and winning. So Armageddon's upon us. Finally. It's exciting, no?
Armageddon, where?
Right here. Boom. Armageddon.
One's called Arm and the other one's called Ageddon.
Yeah. It's quite the fireworks show.
Yeah.
At the Trump parade.
Oh. At the Trump parade, yes.
Yeah, we'll get to that too, but come on, that's not the top. We can't start off with that.
The screaming Israelis.
Screaming Israelis. I think I speak for most people when I say there's a lot of schadenfreude going down the whole world over at the sight of Israelis going, what did we do to deserve this? Well, this is different. I mean, it's been twice now in 2 years that Iran and Israel have lobbed missiles, but this is it. I don't think there's any climbing down from this, but maybe we'll see better. When Netanyahu's made statements that are pretty much politically, they're all in. They seek regime change in Iran because Iran's trying to get WMDs, nuclear weapon, and he has, we think, Axios news outlet in DC says he has formally asked Trump to send in the U.S. military to support Israel in this venture. At the outset, Israel says they expect this to last 2 weeks. That could be famous last words. We'll see.
I think Axios.
One of the hallmarks of it is, for me anyway, I remember we did a show in late April and I was talking to these two and saying, have you guys noticed, oh my God, all these noises coming out of DC, it sounds like Trump and Netanyahu are breaking up. The band, I mean, they're really, really at it. Apparently that was a ruse.
Okay, pause. Apparently Neil has a chipmunk voice.
Nice.
But
that's his real voice.
Does anyone else have a chipmunk voice? I have no idea what that means.
Does anyone else have a chipmunk voice? Can the chat hear us and tell us
who brought chipmunk in?
I'm sorry.
Both of you go in your pocket again.
I put it in Neil's pocket.
We're all sucking on helium.
Yeah.
Well, the Israelis are pretty crazy.
That's just going to interfere with the analysis.
Joe also has a chipmunk voice, and Adam too.
Okay.
Well, that's everybody.
Probably, yeah. On Earth?
It's probably my mic.
We all sound like we
could inhale helium.
Nice.
That's fun.
Maybe we did.
That's hilarious. This might have been too too ambitious.
Probably the.
And whenever you add something,
we can undo it.
You don't need a microphone, Bo. You can just shout from the background, no?
Sure,
yeah.
Turn it off.
Turn off Bo's mic and see if we can put it back to where that was. He'll be.
That's it. He's muted.
He'll be. Oh, he's muted.
He's muted, but did that
So-
help?
Are we better now? Can you hear us normally?
You guys should bring just read.
Just what?
You guys should bring out your favorite works of literature and just read.
Mm.
And you would sit there and watch us, Alejo.
They're watching us read.
You would listen to us.
Internet must be pretty boring.
Do I still sound like a chipmunk?
That's
fixed
not
now.
gonna, if you say that, that's I mean, really?
You do.
They're gonna say yes.
We're on standby, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh.
We're still recording?
Alejandro
Okay.
says It's
So what?
fixed now.
It's fixed now? Okay.
Was
so
it
was
just-
fixed. So it was fixed by taking Bo off. Bo, it was your vibe.
no, you set it up.
It was your bad vibe. Your chipmunk vibe.
Chipmunk vibe.
But everybody can hear you anyway, right? So we don't need you to
I didn't
actually
know
have
I
a mic.
brought a
Talking your
chipmunk
mic-
vibe.
Talking your mic again.
Me?
He is talking to his mic.
No.
Oh, Bo.
Me? Hello?
Yeah.
How do I
Maga.
sound?
Talk more.
No, someone else says it's still there.
For everybody or for just Bo?
Still chipmunky.
For everybody?
It like goes in and out.
Is that because you just switched Bo's microphone on and off? Or you just muted him? It's not fixed. It says you'll detect stuff. Okay, so I'm still sounding like a chipmunk. Great.
Life goal.
Difficulties.
That was my life goal. So I can retire now. Because I sound like a chipmunk.
This is why.
I can't tell if you stop talking. Yes, well, okay, so we should. There's no point in us stopping talking.
Yeah.
Keep talking into your microphone. Joe sounds okay now. Okay. Try Neil. Neil talk, but not in a chipmunk voice, because that doesn't help.
Okay. Yeah. So, Armageddon. It's happening.
It's happening right now.
Armageddon is definitely on. Question is Israel confident or Israel crazy?
Bit of both, seems.
2 weeks from now, regime change in Iran, the Shah's back, the MEK is back, whatever government in waiting at the CIA is shipped in, and then that's it. There's no more axis of resistance. Israel sort of quasi rules the roost in the Middle East, and we've entered a new world. And the last 40 years of the NeoCons efforts are complete. Mission accomplished.
What then?
But is it that simple? Because Israel's getting pummeled with Iranian missiles. Mind you, we've only had 2 nights. It's only been 2 nights of attacks.
Seems like longer.
Was there a pause on Saturday? Was there a night that it missed?
No.
No. It's been,
It's been constant. I
really.
mean, maybe
And
there
it's
was a
only
few
at
hours,
nighttime.
but-
right? There's no daytime stuff.
No, there haven't been daytime. There's daytime stuff today, yeah.
It's coming and going.
The sound cuts out occasionally too.
Yeah.
Sounds like a bad lead, but for all mics. And Chipmunk is back. It's gone again. Usually with Joe and I'll have you change the bit rate. The sound cuts occasionally too. Like at first it's okay, but then as you continue to talk, it gets increasingly high pitchy. Like the pitch increases the longer you guys speak. Nice.
So if we don't say anything,
Can we just unplug what we plugged in for Bo
Yeah.
rather than mute him?
I didn't unplug anything. I simply gave him my microphone. Same microphone, same cable, same everything.
Oh,
Could be,
well there you go.
so there's nothing actually new.
Hmm.
It's just the fact that we're not allowed to talk about what's going on.
Israel.
Hmm.
You're such a conspiracy theorist. You just go straight for it.
Well, the obvious answer What was Elon Musk says that the most entertaining outcome is the most likely?
Yeah, he tweeted that to do with obviously his dust up with Trump. Maybe he had this war in mind? Well, I doubt he was in the know.
Doubtful.
So is this outcome entertaining?
Well,
missiles flying between Iran and Israel?
It's certainly been a lot of, like you were saying before, there's a lot of schadenfreude on the interwebs.
Yeah, although that's a byproduct. That's not intended, right?
Not Musk, right? Musk isn't enjoying it, is he?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Are we any better? Any change? Unless we change something, it probably won't get better.
I am changing things, but
okay.
People have to actually be posting and saying, and I have no microphone to ask. So,
if you guys that are watching / listening can keep us updated,
give us a running commentary
as to the state of things, so that way Scotty can have a good feedback mechanism for debugging whatever the bug is bugging.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So just carry on.
So we'll just carry on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, in hindsight, the White House, Trump, the White House, were engaging in deception, or remember Trump said he gave a 60-day ultimatum to Iran. I think that's what, when people say that he knew the date, when he tweeted or said since the attack started 2 days ago that I knew the date. That's probably what he meant, right? Because it was a 60-day ultimatum and this happened on day 62.
Mm-hmm. So
this time he wasn't just using bombast. He was saying to Iran, no, it's serious. It's serious. You're going to get it unless something breaks through. But what could he really realistically expect Iran to do other than meet 5 times with the 6th planned today, Sunday? He was hoping for Iran to go, okay, fair deal. We'll just hang on, give us a day. We'll go kick out the Ayatollah. You bring in your boys, and then you get your regime change. And then, well, exactly. Trump gives a 60-day ultimatum to Iran, right?
Not for regime change.
Not for regime change. But that's what Israel says the purpose of this.
Yeah.
The strikes are.
But that's not what the purpose of the meetings were.
No, it was to do with nuclear program.
Right.
What I'm getting at is, what could Iran have satisfied in meetings about the nuclear issue that would have prevented the ultimatum from kicking in?
Well, for Trump, it would have been giving up their nuclear program.
Okay.
There was something that I saw also from Axios that was saying that that there was a potential like flexibility, because I may be wrong on this, but the prior meetings and things, the deals that they were trying to work out was basically the U.S. saying you can't have any nuclear, no nuclear refining, enrichment, storage, or anything like that in Iran. And the Iranians were like, no, we have a civil nuclear program. Like, we need to at least be able to have that going.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, the back and forth was like, no, you have to get rid of it all. No, we're going to keep it. And then I saw from Axios that there was some flexibility
3%, yeah.
Where they were, potentially talking about letting them
2%.
have the 3%. And then that was on the 2nd or the 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only thing in terms of like the, what could they have done in order to prevent the ultimatum from kicking in? They could have, they wouldn't have agreed to getting rid of their enrichment program. But if there was serious intentions to allow the Iranians to have 3% enrichment, if that was what was on the table for today, then that would potentially explain why the Israelis kicked off on Friday.
Oh, Iran could actually have been considering seriously meeting Trump's new demand. And they went, we better do this now or never.
Of course.
Okay. Although the problem with that's a good theory. Problem with that theory is that Trump has since completely owned it.
Yeah.
That he was fully informed that the whole stuff since April was totally a ruse. It was actually what he's people joke and meme about it. Trump's 4D chess, that he was engaging in 4D chess. That
Do you believe that?
No.
I don't either.
I know, but that's kind of like the common. That's the received wisdom at the moment that he, Dan Greenwald, Sweden, and others, and some of them are like, I told you in April, Trump is just stringing them along because this is the intended outcome in both Tel Aviv and Washington.
Not true.
Okay, so is Trump surprised, or so Trump has handled this as a fact, the attack, and he's not expecting it.
It's hard to tell exactly, but based on his statements, which are all over the place, back and forth, contradicting himself, claiming one thing one day, saying another thing another day, suggests that he was simply doing what he's been his strategy, as everybody should be aware of by now, having watched the man for the past, well, at least since he got elected. But is that his approach to dealing with kind of issues that other countries, like, well, just look at this whole trade deal business, the way he approached that. It's like lots of threats, impose all these tariffs on China, for example, 5 million% tariffs or whatever it was, and then we'll remove those because that's not actually going to work. It's a bad idea. It's going to hurt America. Don't want to do that. So he has this kind of childish. He's a big child, basically. He's like a giant big orange baby, and like inflated baby, and he thinks that it's kind of schoolyard tactics, almost. I'm going to, you threaten someone, but in a kind of like in a way that it's obvious that it's a kind of hollow threat in a certain sense, although you're not sure he might do it, he mightn't do it, but then he goes ahead and does it. Then quickly he changes his mind and says, see, I made a great deal. And nobody knows, it happens so quickly that the people that he's threatening, like China in the case of trade and stuff, they don't even have time to respond. He'll say, okay, I'm imposing 500% tariffs on China, and China goes, okay, what? Hang on, we got to think about this. And then a couple of weeks go by and the Chinese are still thinking about it and saying, what will we do about this? They're just still discussing. And then Trump says, okay, I'm reducing the trade, the tariffs to 5% from 500% because China has backed down. And China's like, what? Hang on a fucking minute. We didn't even say anything yet. Like, no, just, it's all good. I made the deal, and America's going to be great again. So anyway, moving on to this next issue, and India and Pakistan, you guys fighting, you got to stop it. India and Pakistan are like beating the head of each other, like kind of punching each other in the face and stuff, and Trump standing behind them saying stuff to them and they're not even listening to him, and then eventually they just get tired of fighting, and then Trump says, okay, good job, guys. I understand now that I can see, or everybody can see, that my presence, simply standing behind you, has caused you to stop fighting, when it probably wasn't that at all. And he says, great success for my art of the deal. I've won another one, chalks another one up on the board. So he's basically took the same approach to Iran, where he's like threatening them with, I'm going to invade you, you've got 60 days, we're going to attack you, it'll be terrible, it'll be horrible, you'll be hit the hardest you've ever been hit, it'll be huge, a huge hit on the Iranians if they don't do what I say. hoping, expecting that the Iranians will go, okay, just put the gun down, Trump. We'll do whatever you want. And he's like, excellent. Or the deal wins again. And this is all in his own head, basically, to a large extent. Because it all happens far too quick. There's not enough time for other countries to actually, respond, or for the wheel of diplomacy to grind and all that kind of stuff very slowly. It all happens. His announcements all happen way too quick. So basically, in the case of Israel, or in the case of Iran, he threatens, we're going to invade you 60 days if you don't do it. If you don't make a deal, come to the table, make the nuclear deal, or agree whatever he wanted them to agree. And again, he's back and forth on that. Okay, no enrichment. Okay, maybe we'll do 3% enrichment. And he claims that the hardliners, the people are tough and stuff. But what's obvious in all of that is that he's getting information from other people, because Trump is sitting on his big orange butt in DC most of the time, or on his golf course, on his golf cart, or in the Oval Office or wherever. He's not really doing much in the way of actually being on the front line. He's dispatching people and he's getting information back. But he's not only getting information back from those people he's dispatching, because they're not very effective. That guy Witkoff, not really very effective. He's disappeared off the scene. He's getting information from deep state or advisors and all that kind of stuff, people who run the show behind the scenes anyway. So he's been told all sorts of different things. And of course he's listening to the Israelis as well, and listening to people in Washington DC who are basically Israeli firsters, who are nominally Americans but who are Israeli firsters. And they're basically telling him all sorts of things, whatever. But it seems at the end of the day here, the conclusion from his statements is that he didn't really have much say in the matter. He tries to claim it after the fact, because it would look bad for him. That's obviously the reason why he would flip-flop. Like, put it this way: if I say we're going to do this, and then something exact opposite of what I said we're going to do actually happens, it's probably a bad idea for me to go, oh, fuck yeah, I had no idea that was going to happen. Like, I'm a completely powerless, ineffective president. I'm just going to signal that to the whole world that I just had no fucking idea that our military was going to support Israel in attacking Iran. No one fucking told me what's going on here. And then, not a good idea, right? So he obviously claims after the fact, when stuff happens, either he's coerced into accepting it and he is aware of it, but he has no choice in the matter, or he maybe finds out, he's one of the last to know in a certain sense, and then he has to save face, because the guy is very concerned about his appearance and appearing to be the commander-in-chief and greatest president America ever had, as we all know. So
it's like the Bay of Pigs.
Yes,
just,
to some extent, except a bit more
Israel
clown shoey. A lot more clown shoes involved.
Yeah, but the stakes are also like...
Yeah, more clown shoey in the way it manifests. Because of Trump, mainly. But...
okay,
so to some extent, not really. I mean, it wasn't meant to like screw over Trump, because he does keep his finger on the pulse. He's not like he's not at war with the establishment in the same way that he might have been, or might have been perceived to have been during his first term. So they're not really out to get him in the same way this term, but he obviously, I don't know, he's bent the knee, or he's, given in, let's say, to the deep state to some extent. This term, he's realized that, based on his last experience in his first administration, he can't. He doesn't have all the cards, just like Zelensky, Zelensky has less cards than Trump, but Trump has less cards than the deep state, let's say. And he's realized that, so he goes along with the narrative. He has no other choice but to go along with it, basically. But at the same time, he wants to save face, so he's not going to admit that. That's the most Occam's razor type of analysis of the situation, in my opinion.
So he's making up narratives after the fact.
He's very good at doing that in general.
We all are, but
he's very good at doing that
really
in general. I mean, he has proven himself very good at doing that in other areas, so it's not surprising that he would do the same thing in relation to this.
Okay, so does he have any say then in whether or not the US will actually assist Israel? I mean, in an overt way.
He would have to resist it. If he does nothing, it happens. He would have to actively say no, and then whether or not that would actually have any effect, don't know, but maybe it would. But he would have to actively say no.
Well, I mean, it could just be another Russia-Ukraine situation where it's like, everybody knows there's U.S. involvement, but ostensibly there's officially no, brigades of American troops on the ground in Ukraine. I mean, there's
not officially.
That's what, yeah. And so maybe along similar lines, it's like, they've already done things to help the Israelis as far as flying across using Iraqi airspace, etc. In order to do what they've done in Iran. And so if he does nothing, that just basically means that they're going to continue doing that stuff. If he actively resists it, that stuff is probably going to go on anyway.
Well, he realizes. I mean, it's not that he. It's kind of complicated because Israel obviously could have attacked, carry out the attacks that has carried out over the past couple of days against Iran, technically on its own, to some extent, with less effectiveness or less success, let's say, than maybe without American support than with some American support. So they really have that over the Americans to a large extent, which is, we can go ahead and do this anyway. We don't need your help. Technically, we don't need your help. Maybe in the longer term, yes, but to do something to launch a fairly significant attack on Iran, we don't need American help because Israel has a very strong military, at least in terms of airplanes and tech and all that kind of stuff. So they could do this themselves if they wanted to. So if someone says that to you, then basically, well, it's but then at the same time, America has as much skin in the game in terms of Israel, surviving, Israel being the Americans' unsinkable aircraft carrier in the Middle East, as it has been for the past 80 years. So when it comes down to it, Americans ultimately will side with Israel. So if the Israelis turn around and say, we're going to do this anyway, or they put enough pressure on to make it clear that they're going to do it anyway, then the Americans don't have really much choice but to, lend a hand, basically. So the only thing negotiated would be, look, we need to keep our involvement on the lowdown because Trump wants to be, he wants a Nobel Peace Prize. That's his main thing, is that he wants a Nobel Peace Prize. So he doesn't want to be seen to be someone, and he's also promised all of his MAGA followers, like you two, he promised you two, that he would not start any wars, so he doesn't want to let you two down. So as long as it looks like he hasn't let you down, then he hasn't let you down, right? Even though he might have to some extent, So he wants to pander to the base as well, So he wants to keep it all ambiguous.
Yeah.
I mean, this an example of he'd be just like, this is one of a few missives that he sent out over the past couple of days, and this one's just from on Truth Social from about half an hour ago. So he's back to he's just reading from the script again. Iran and Israel should make a deal. This is literally like half an hour ago, and we'll make a deal. So everybody calm down. There's going to be a deal. Just like I got India and Pakistan to make a deal, right? Nobody knows what deal that was, but apparently it was a deal that was made there. In that case, using trade. So he's using trade with the United States to bring reason, cohesion, and sanity into the talks with two excellent leaders who were able to quickly make a decision on stop. That's India and Pakistan. Also, during my term, this is something revelation to the whole world. Serbia and Kosovo were going at it hot and heavy. If you don't know if you remember that was a big. There were missiles flying between Serbia and Kosovo. Or well, not technically, not. There were like
there was a police scuffle at the border.
There was virtual missiles flying. All right, virtual.
Okay.
Like verbal missiles. Like it's all the same. Okay, you have to understand. This is the order of the deal. Just don't fucking
shut up.
Stop nitpicking Trump on the details. For fuck's sake.
Okay. Get to the
point. So he's making the point very clear. It was hot and heavy, as they have for many decades. So there's been a war going on between Serbia and Kosovo for many decades, and no one was able to stop it. But this long time conflict that everybody was aware of in mainland Europe was ready to break out into a war, and only Trump knew that. But he stopped it. And there was another case in Egypt and Ethiopia. Just recently, you all heard about that. It was all across the news. How Egypt and Ethiopia and their fight over a massive dam, it was on the point of going nuclear, even though those two don't have nuclear weapons, but it was going nuclear. Figuratively, right? Okay, just figuratively. Come on, Jesus Christ. So he figuratively stopped the nuclear war between Egypt and Ethiopia. So that's the background, right? That's just where he's coming from. So now there's peace across the world as a result of Trump, right? So where's that fucking Nobel Peace Prize, people? Jesus, what does he have to do? There is peace, at least for now, because of my intervention. Hello, Nobel Peace Prize. And it will stay that way, God willing, and the Jews don't rise. Likewise, we will have peace soon between Israel and Iran. Okay? There's going to be peace soon between Israel and Iran. Many calls to meetings are now taking place. He does a lot. I do a lot. I, as Trump, do a lot. And never get credit for anything. He basically just single-handedly saved the world over the past few months, and he got no credit for it. But that's okay. The people, two guys here, MAGA guys, they understand.
Merc.
Right? That's what we're talking about. And of course, everybody needs to make the Middle East great again. So, thank you for this. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your attention on this episode.
I hope everybody understands where I'm coming from, because I have no fucking idea where I'm coming from. So if someone could help me understand what's actually going on around me, because I have no fucking idea what's going on around me. I mean, there's wars breaking out and I'm stopping them. It's like whack-a-mole. Whack-a-mole fucking wars.
But no one's ever heard of it except me, because I stopped them.
But you'll thank me one day whenever I figure out what I did.
This is insane.
So that's what's going on. So that's all there is to it.
Okay, but yeah, let's get back to the real world. Yeah. No, Trump. Israel wants regime change. That's like Iraq.
Yeah.
Syria took a long time. Iraq took a long time. In the real world, this isn't going to be.
There is no deal.
2 weeks. There is no deal. You've got German planes, British ships, French ships, all engaged from the get-go. It's a NATO op. It's happened behind Trump, away above Trump. It's gone from 0 to 100 in 2 days. We're pretty sure Iran has nukes. Iran is maintaining the pretense it doesn't have nukes. The whole nuke thing was a charade, obviously. The NeoCons threw Wesley Clark, for example, in 2003 when he says, I walked into the Pentagon a few days after 9/11 and a general handed me a paper with a list of 7 countries who were going to regime change. Iran was the last of them. And here we are. It was systematically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the real that's the real world. So let's start from the assumption it's going to happen, because that's what's happened so far, 2 weeks. Wow. They do have to take out the Ayatollah. Hope the chaos in Iran results in a pro-West-ish government, or a government that seeks to just say stop. But by saying stop, this is the kind of ask we're being asked to believe here. Regime change here should be taken in the classical meaning of the word. Regime isn't what a regime means in international relations, isn't actually the 5 or 6 people who are at the top of a government. It's the whole set of beliefs and ideologies that underline the state ideology. Iran, since 1979, its state ideology is to get Israel out of the Middle East. Well, through Israel, get the US out of the Middle East. This entire regime, in the classical sense, is based on that. We're being asked to believe here, in art of the deal style, any minute now or within the next 2 weeks, snap your fingers, Iran is just going to change that and replace it with something.
Israel's going to change that.
Israel's going to change that. The likelihood of that happening is almost zero. So Iran's going to fight.
Well, of course, they're not going to change. I mean, they're not going to give in, right? It's either complete capitulation or regime change, and all the different ways that regime change is affected. In fact, there's what started. You see you can watch the evolution of this. Like this is from Iran just today. Reports from Tehran say saboteurs blew up water and sewage pipelines, flooding streets. So the Israelis have Mossad, etc., agents of different types, not just Israelis but others as well, Quislings, kind of
MEK.
Traders basically in Iran, MEK, etc. Yeah. Different nationalities in Iran, sleeper cells you call them, I suppose, who've been there for a long time. So they're and they're on the ground. They're not just using their standoff missiles from aircraft to blow up things. They're using people on the ground with manpads and different explosives and all that kind of stuff to blow up strategic, infrastructure. So yeah, this is. When you see this kind of thing, they're not. I mean, that can peter out if there's a change in policy or something. But that means that they're going. They have a plan in place. Have had a plan in place, and they're implementing it right now, of destabilizing the country from within.
They're going to need jihadis.
Well, that's the one thing. That's the one thing. I mean, I doubt the jihadi. I mean, it would be an option. They wouldn't win, I don't think, with a bunch of jihadis, because the Iranian military would be strong enough in terms of on a ground war, let's say, to deal with jihadis. You couldn't do the same thing you've done. They did in Syria starting in 2011, bringing in ISIS and those kind of people in. And most likely, in that case, you would have Russian help, using the justification of, well, Russia has a history of fighting against ISIS in Middle Eastern countries, so it would probably do the same thing in Iran. So they probably, while they entertained the idea, thought about it, had it on the table, they probably decided not to do that because they just don't have the number of jihadis and the capabilities, let's say, to flood Iran with a jihadi army. So they're relying on the classical regime change tactics, which I'd be doubtful as to whether they'll work. But this is one example that we just showed you, blowing up.
But are you talking
water
about
sanitation
it being a push from the top, as in like a fifth column that is already in the Iranian government?
No, I don't think so.
Or are you talking about Arab Spring style
Well, no, they're
get a lot of-
maybe they're hoping that I mean, this example suggests that they're trying to make life difficult enough for the Iranian people. It's a bit of a stretch, you know. It's
because it's
like I
working
said,
very
it's
well
classic.
for the Palestinians.
It's classic and very basic regime change operation, but without the kind of influence that they've had in other places that they've done that, or in other places they had, like through USAID and other NGOs and stuff. The US was able to, generate a lot of, over a long period of time, generate that kind of grassroots, quote unquote, grassroots resistance. So it would have, like they did in Ukraine, for example, in 2014, that kind of thing. I don't think they have that in Ukraine, and they can't expect to have that in Ukraine.
In Iran, you mean?
Sorry, in Iran. So,
And they
but
also
they're going for the very basic stuff, which is blow up infrastructure, make life hard for the people, and then hope that life becomes difficult enough for the Iranian people that the Iranian people decide to give in.
But the messaging that the Iranian people have been getting as they've watched the West, do all of these same tactics over the rest of the Middle East and in Ukraine, etc. They've seen it, and so now what do the Israelis think is going to go through the minds of these Iranians who've been told for decades now that this is what they do, and here it is happening in your country? Do you think maybe that the Israelis want you to?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I don't know enough about the kind of resistance, let's say, the anti-government section of the population, let's say, in the liberals in Iran. I don't know what their real numbers are, and how many people would actually be willing to seize the opportunity to overthrow the mullahs, quote unquote, or the Iranian government, basically, the Ayatollah and all that kind of stuff, and usher in a secular Western liberalistan. I don't know. I don't think anybody really knows how many of those kinds of people there are, and how organized they might be, or how, and self-organizing, not necessarily organized from without, but of course there are obviously some elements. There are Israeli intelligence and different agents within Iran, as we've seen, but they're generally they've been employed for the war effort, let's say, blowing things up, etc. Then releasing drones and all that kind of stuff. In terms of grassroots stuff, I don't think they have enough to do that, but they think that maybe they can, that if they make life difficult enough, not just for the Iranian people, but also destabilize society and directly, like when you're blowing up water and sewage pipelines and that kind of stuff, do people start to protest? Do that group of Western-oriented liberals within Iran start protesting, start organizing mass protests? Does the Iranian government then put people onto the streets, put police and security forces onto the streets and crack down on them? And then do you have a situation where there's an accusation that, which would be a victory for the Israelis and the US themselves, if it could be broadcast across the global media, that Iran, the Iranian government, is killing its own people, because that's obviously a meme that has been used
time and again
several times in the past to justify, humanitarian, what's it called, right to protect, R2P. Samantha Power knows a lot about that, so she'd be front and center on that one, and that might. I mean, I don't think Trump would be interested in that. That might not work anymore in a Trump administration, because the Trump administration, with all the MAGA heads like you two guys, are all about, fuck those foreigners, let them take care of their own problems. We're not here, and Trump has been explicit about that. We're not here to police the world anymore. We're not here to intervene in other countries' problems. Let them deal with themselves. So that's a bit of a non-starter as well. So Trump, for all the criticism we might level at him and stuff, he is
the windows. So we have to follow through as soon as possible. We need a false flag and get the Americans in overtly.
Yeah.
This is the most likely outcome in sometime in the next 2 weeks.
There's a perfect opportunity for it to
And
happen.
when that happens, the Iranians are going to, well, they're going to survival mode. The Straits of Hormuz, you can kiss goodbye to oil coming out of there. That's 20% of world oil supplies, oil and gas.
Yeah, that's if America
They're
gets
going to
involved.
hit American bases in Qatar, Kuwait.
The
Iraq.
Iranians are obviously calculating here because, it's not as simple. People maybe tend to take a kind of oversimplistic approach to it and don't realize that, there's a lot of calculations that have to be made on both sides. And obviously, well, by the Israelis and by the Iranians and by the Americans. And the Iranians have to calculate. They're not just going to go, we've been talking about how the Zionist entity must be wiped from the pages of history for about 20 years. So now we have an opportunity to make good on that. And let's just go ahead and do it. All right, go ahead, shoot all our missiles, and boom, there you go. Yay! It's a boxing match, right? And people look at it like it's a boxing match, and they're cheering for one side or the other, and they think just keep punching each other and see who falls down first, right? That's how wars happen. No, well, not really. In fact, not at all. So the Iranians obviously don't want the Americans to be involved, so they have to be careful in their calculations in terms of, they have this. If you notice in the way they basically responded in a tit for tat way. The Iranians targeted the Israelis targeted their opening gambit. They're the ones who started this conflict. They attacked Iranian military personnel and infrastructure and scientists, civilian. Iranian scientists are seen by Israel as being part of the establishment, whatever. So it's their military tech, let's say. So they attacked them, killed them in their beds, basically, and attacked, nuclear sites. They're not really going to have much effect on nuclear sites because they're all very well protected below ground and stuff. But then they attack military targets. So Iran responds by attacking the Israeli defense headquarters, and a few other military installations, military sites. Then today, so today or overnight, let's say last night, the Israelis attacked oil and gas terminals,
refinery,
storage sites, and refinery. So the Iranians responded by attacking Haifa, which is a oil refinery site in Israel. So the Iranians are being quite careful in terms of how they're simply responding in kind. They're responding tit for tat. So they'll continue to do that. If America stays out of it, well then
it just becomes
probably won't go very well for the sort of, and it won't go very well for it won't go well for the Israelis in that scenario. It won't end well, I don't think. That's why they're desperately trying. They really want to try and overthrow the government. That's what they've been focusing on for the most part. Very quickly they turned around to, we're going to blow up. They've been talking all along about blowing up, stopping Iran's nuclear program.
Bomb.
But that was all bullshit, right? Because they can't, because they know they're very far underground.
It's no regime.
They switch it over, and it's now regime change.
Which means that's what it always was.
Of course it was. But it's like there's policy papers from the Brookings Institute going back 10 years. You know what I mean?
But hang on, just before you show that, you said if.
Which path to Persia?
If the US does not get involved. But we just deduced that 100% probability. Well, come on.
I never deduce 100%.
Okay, never deduce 100%, but there is 100%.
Never go full.
There's 100%
retard.
There's 100% interest in Israel in setting up the false flag. So,
they can.
Comma, and the rest of that parenthesis is if also Trump doesn't use it and doesn't live up to his constant threats to smack you around back to the Stone Age. Mm-hmm. So there's a double if in there. That's the only thing this is all hinging on.
Again, it's something you have to think about how it's going to happen.
This is the Israelis. They can come up with all kinds of ways.
Tell me. Flesh it out there. You have to flesh those things out. You can't just leave it at that. In the current,
how does the Mossad come up with a false flag?
In the current context.
Let me name the ways.
In the current context, yep.
It's not easy as pie.
Well, they did have the...
They showed that they may as well have said we're behind both Ukraine and Israel because within 10 days, we've had drones come out of civilian vehicles inside the target countries. How would they pull it off? Fuck, use your imagination. Like, surely that's...
Explain. You have to have
they
the
also
details. I mean, you can't
already-
just say use your imagination. You have to actually explain how it's going to happen in the current context.
Well, they already had the
But you can't,
plan for...
I'm telling you, you can't leave it at that. You actually have to explain it. You have to actually think about it and explain how it would happen in the current context. And think about the ways that it would happen, and then think about the context around that and how it would go about it. Just give me an example. You said use your imagination, but that's not useful because I can think of anything. I have to think about it in the current context.
There's a missile that comes in and hits the US base in Qatar.
Right. But
After it's been set up such that a missile was incoming from there. So you've got to be clever about it. This is the Mossad.
America has just...
They spoofed an Iranian aircraft.
America has just basically left Ukraine high and dry in terms of their air defense by shipping all of their stuff, not to Israel, but to the Middle East, to Qatar, to Saudi Arabia, to Iraq, and Syria, and they're based in Syria, to shoot down any missiles that might come near them, including Israeli.
And then
So how easy is it for the Israelis to fire a missile that is successful and does material damage to American bases?
Israel has like all the NSA backdoors. I mean, how hard is it?
But that's
keeping
crazy
in mind,
speculation. Like,
keeping in mind here that Israel, in inverted quotes, is Uzrael, is the deep state.
right?
In other words, there's a US interest tied to it happening.
Some US interest.
The ultimate US interest, the one that has all NATO suddenly activated within 48 hours, and German planes in the air refueling Israeli jets over fucking Jordan.
But that's
That's the hidden hand.
no, that's not the hidden hand. That's the overt hand. Like we were talking earlier on, people who talk about, America is already involved in this. Of course, America is already involved, and that's not a debatable question. You can use it to criticize Trump and say, "Oh, Trump says we're not involved," when obviously, the Germans say they're not involved. When obviously, here's evidence of a plane refueling, and there's no way Israel could have attacked Iran without American intelligence. Of course, that's all self-evident, and it's not a scandal. It's not strange, and it does not imply American involvement. American involvement implies or would manifest as American military might attacking Iran. That's American involvement. So when people say America is involved, no, they're not. Refueling tankers and providing intelligence is not American involvement.
Not in the new normal, no. There was a time when that
the point is,
very
there
much
would be
war.
no attack on Iran
Yeah.
without American involvement. So we wouldn't even be talking about this if America wasn't involved. America and Israel are joined at the hip and have been since 1948. Of course they're involved. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
people
use
are
it
you
to-
suggesting that it's very, very, it's really, actually, this is the one saving grace in this, of us not going to a full-blown Armageddon situation. It's actually very, very difficult for Israel to execute what it needs to play this trump card, US direct involvement. Are you suggesting that this is hard in this situation, that they have very few options, that everything's being watched? Or are you saying it's unlikely?
Well, we just went from 100% probability to now almost none.
Why almost none? Why is it so unlikely?
No, you're suggesting that.
No.
That's what you're asking me.
I'm getting the pushback and saying no.
Yeah,
you're asking how. Imagine a scenario where it's possible.
Right, so I'm pushing back from the 100% likelihood of it happening, and now it's going to almost impossible. Those are two extremes that I.
Well, Mike Pompeo.
You know what I mean? It's like when you tell me it's 100%
said,
impossible, and I dispute that. That doesn't mean that I'm saying it's 0% impossible.
Okay.
Right. Okay. That's all.
Mike Pompeo has already said that Iran has terror cells all over the world.
9/11, Joe.
Huh?
9/11.
9/11 what?
The double cross. I mean, they both worked together, but only one side knew. other things. Like this is how this has worked all through history. The US gets played along, it thinks it's involved in one thing, and then there's a surprise, the October surprise, and suddenly they're in something totally different.
Yeah.
I'm suggesting the pattern of history is it's most likely that that pattern will hold up. And
Except you don't have a compliant president in the White House.
okay, so that guy that guy there who we just saw is the one hope
Yeah, that's what
for
I
this
said.
not going into an
That's-
actual Armageddon.
That's all I said, that the only thing that stands out as a possibility of preventing this from going in the standard way that it's always gone is Trump's Trump's him as president and his stated objectives. Now you can either throw them all out and say he's a complete quisling and that he's just been bluffing all along and that he's a full-on Israel observer or Israel firster, NeoCon rabid psycho who wants to blow the shit out of Iran and kill as many people as possible. Put him in that camp. But do you want to do that?
It sure looks like he is to most people.
It looks like he is.
It-
You would put him in that camp.
No, I wouldn't. No.
I don't think it looks like the way the most people
it's
do.
a lot of hope to put on, given his behavior and what's just happened. The people online are saying that that's copium.
What's
They're
up?
saying, I told you, Trump, neocons, what's the difference? We've ended up in the same situation.
But well, yeah, I'm just saying we've ended up in a similar situation. But what I'm saying and what I said, like at the beginning, is that the only thing that's stopping that from happening, or that may stop that from happening, or that has a chance of stopping that from happening, is the fact that Trump is not one of those people. Whether or not that'll be effective, or whether or not that will actually have an effect, it's hard to know. We don't know who's talking to him, who's been put in different positions, the allegiance of the people, who would kind of push the buttons or would have to stand down. You talked about 9/11 and all that kind of stuff and stand down orders and blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying that there's a chance, a possibility that, I think it's very likely, and in fact, it's almost self-evident that Trump is not one of those people. And then you have to decide whether or not someone like Trump in that position would have the ability or would have the influence to at least prevent that from happening. Because for something like 9/11, for example, to happen, you have to have complete control. There can be no resistance, no impediment. Trump seems to be an impediment, because otherwise, why did they try and kill him a year ago? You know what I mean? It's all. I mean,
With the narrative at the time being that Iran was linked to the
was
guy.
going to be
Yeah.
the explanation.
That was going to be the false flag.
So Trump was going to be murdered in service to, by deep staters in service to starting a war with Iran.
Yeah.
But less than a year later, we're going to put Trump in that camp with the people who tried to kill him. Seems unreasonable. Seems a bit far-fetched to me. Seems a bit extreme. Seems a bit, too much of a.
It's hyperbolic to me. The people who say he's nothing but a neocon because he hasn't done
It's
X, Y, Z the way I like it.
It's all black and white, and
Yeah.
and nobody. A few people seem to like. I mean, it's not surprising on social media, but people just have extremist views. They just come out with like, it's all bad or it's all good, and it's just like I'm just, it's obviously not. It's at least in this context, there have been times where and in situations where it is all bad, let's say, but I think we can still allow for the fact that Trump is, does have his own agenda, and the only question is whether or not his own agenda, which is technically, according to his campaign promises and his promises to his base, to be to not start any wars and be a peacemaker president. He clearly wants a Nobel Prize, genuinely. That agenda would at least have some impact on, or some influence on, staying the hand to one extent or another. Whether or not it's enough, don't know. Whether or not it can be overcome, don't know. from staying the hand of the ones who want total war with Iran. So that's why I said it remains to be seen. Trump is, he's like Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars, right?
Explain.
Help us, Obi-Wan. You're our only hope.
Yeah.
In a way, though he represents the will of the American people who voted him into office,
Right?
And who I would say the vast majority of which don't want America involved in anything.
Exactly.
And so far, he's followed through on that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's done some things that have bothered people, like selling weapons to Israel, and maybe they provided some sort of intel with missile strikes into Iran. Sure, but that doesn't mean that he's part of the deep state. It doesn't mean that he's just like another president that's for the last
can he stop
60
this?
Years. Can he stop it?
Yeah.
That's an open question.
It's not something that we can really say. Like, I mean, has there already been something that's been stopped? Maybe.
Well, you just read it from Trump himself, right? Yeah. That his latest convoluted missive is that Iran and Israel should make a deal. Trump's, he's coming out with these statements on Truth Social, and it's the same messaging that he's given to. He's taken a step back, right? He's the mediator. Mm-hmm. He's the referee. Russia and Ukraine should make a deal. India and Pakistan should make a deal. This country and that country should make a deal. I will help. I will use whatever influence I can to help, but I just want these wars to stop. And he starts off today, literally an hour ago, saying Iran and Israel should make a deal. Y'all stop fighting. People go, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, you just helped Israel to do that. Yes, of course he didn't help them, but America did help them because they're kind of duty bound or compromise bound to help Israel. And the best they can do is do only that. Right?
Israel will never make a deal.
Of course they won't. So what's Trump going to do?
Yeah, exactly. That's the question.
He'll just keep shouting at them, we're losing so many people a week. Like he was saying in Ukraine and Russia, we need to stop this, I need blah, blah, blah. And then, but the difference here between this situation with Israel and Iran and Ukraine and Russia is that Ukraine and Russia, he can say whatever he wants, but it's up to Russia.
Right.
I mean, America can have an influence, whatever, what they're willing to put into, because obviously in the same way, America is helping a lot. Ukraine has been for the past 3 years. So America does have an influence, and there's all sorts of backroom deals going on. They're trying to work it out. And America is more invested in that conflict because it has put a lot of money into it, and it is fighting that conflict. Basically, America has been fighting Russia in Ukraine way more than in the past couple of days, let's say, it has been fighting Iran by Israel. Will that change? Well, like we said, the only thing that could really make that happen, it seems, at least based on Trump, would be some kind of a false flag or some kind of situation where it's perceived that American bases were attacked by Iran. But Iran, I don't think has any intention of doing that because it has its own interests to consider. It obviously does not want America to be fully engaged in an attack or a war with Iran. So it will just try and keep it at the level of Iran-Israel and do the tit for tat, back and forth, and have Trump stand in between the two of them and go, y'all need to make a deal.
Maybe just get the goddamn bases away from Iran and we wouldn't have to worry about them being bombed. Yes. That would be something that I think a lot of us want in the U.S. Like, why do we have these servicemen over in the Middle East?
Well, because it's an important place.
I know. It's like, Israel, blah, 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 blah.
Not just Israel, but...
Get rid of these damn bases.
No, that's America's... It's staked its claim to the Middle East a long time ago, and it's quite important for American...
hegemony. I don't feel like it's important at all.
Well, RFK said it. It even comes down to the level of Maha people and or RFK, although he may be a bit more informed than others, but you can this is common knowledge and has been for a long time in political circles in the political establishment in the US that, well, in RFK Jr.'s words, it's that if we don't maintain control or influence or dominance in the Middle East,
so what?
Russia and China will take over the Middle East.
Good,
and then it's curtains for America.
Let them take over.
No more petrodollar.
The whole ocean
No more petrodollar, and then your economy tanks, and you're all eating grass. You and the cows. Yeah, pretty much. Because no more petrodollar, no more reserve currency, and it all goes horribly wrong. America's lived high in the hog.
That is what Americans thought they signed up for.
What
Bo just articulated. Just bring them all home.
Yeah.
And they're still working on that assumption.
If we take Canada as the 51st
but anyway, that's ideological. What they
most
don't
Americans
want,
are oblivious.
The basic thing is they don't want another war.
Right. They don't want any more. Well, I don't know. I don't know how many Americans actually. Someone was talking about it's free will, basically. It's the free will of people to, everybody has free will. It's a very important rule, and everybody should get to, to think and believe what they want to think and believe. But in terms of Americans, like when you think about Americans and what they think and believe, I don't know what they think and believe really, because the baseline of them actually being informed is not even there. So what they think and believe it may as well be about a different planet. If you ask the average American what they think about the average MAGA person, what they think about the world and America's place in the world and where it should go under Trump, they'll tell you things that are completely detached from reality. That they may as well be talking about a different planet and a different country that exists on a different planet. They're not actually informed about America, its history, why America is in the position it's in the world today, and what the future, what the conflicts in the world are actually, why they're happening, why there's a war in Ukraine, why this situation with Israel and Iran. They have no idea whatsoever. So they can't actually give you they can give you an opinion, but it's completely detached from reality, and that's their free will to do that. But effectively what their free will comes down to in that case is their free will to be completely oblivious,
misinformed, greatly,
and therefore oblivious. So
you're not getting a multipolar world where one of the poles is North America plus the Middle East. That's just, I know that's what they think they can have. Those like Rubio who have embraced the concept, presumably this is what they're thinking. Okay, I get it. So Russia, China, and then we're North America plus 5,000 miles away the Middle East. That's the
multipolar world. That's the world the way it is today.
Mm-hmm.
Well, almost.
That's a unipolar
they
world.
want to lock down Iran, lock down, and then they have the whole energy spigot of the world.
And where's the multipolar come into that?
Well, they're content for Russia to have the influence in Ukraine and China. I mean, I presume he's accepting China's, they don't want hegemony, but they don't want China to have hegemony, but they accept, Rubio said, it's a multipolar world we're moving into. So they're having this conversation in DC. They're acknowledging that objective reality is unfolding. They still seem to think, though, that multipolar more or less implicitly implies that you have the capital of that dominant country and then a radius or sphere of influence out from it. But they're in La La Land if they think it's going to be Washington, D.C., radiating out to North America, skip an ocean and the Middle East with Israel as the local. That's just... this is what it is.
Well, Trump has been, he hasn't said it explicitly, but Rubio's talked about multipolar world and a couple of others have, and Trump has kind of made it obvious that his view of the future of the way the world should change, let's say, or the way the world is changing and how America should engage with it is that it would be split. The world would effectively be split into three spheres: American, Russian, and Chinese. And he's willing to do, friendly deals with Russia and China, or trying to do friendly deals with Russia and China in order to agree terms about who gets what. But one thing that's not negotiable for the Americans is the Middle East. they have to maintain control of the Middle East. And this would be Trump's opinion as well, which is why he's, to one extent or another, kind of half-heartedly yes and no, in support of, giving tacit support or some level of support to Israel's attack on Iran, because the Middle East has to be made safe in perpetuity into the future for American interests. i.e. American interests have to maintain their control over the Middle East.
So do they need to keep control of Israel and American bases in the Middle East in order for them to keep access to Saudi Arabian and Qatari oil? They need that.
Yes.
There's no other way
control
around
over it.
There's no other way.
No. Because if they walk away, then literally China, in particular, China and Russia just move in. And China has already been literally building roads to move in to the Middle East over the past 10 or 15 years. Roads, railways, ports, infrastructure, all that kind of stuff. And that's what's freaking them out. And Iran is seen as aiding and abetting that. Iran is this in a strategic position. It's at a nexus of that. And if Iran isn't ideologically turned, i.e. regime change, then it's not good for America. So they're fighting. That's basically what they're fighting over. They're fighting over the Middle East, which is what people have been complaining about for a long time.
I want to try it out.
You want to try it out? Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't just you want to walk away?
Yeah. I mean, it's a whole ocean away. Let's see what happens. What the heck? It's not like anything's going that great.
No, yeah, it could get worse.
Maybe it could. Yeah,
it's one of those situations where you take the hit before
you get rid of the petrodollar. I mean, that part of the economy is all
quit while you're not ahead.
Yeah, well,
before you go even more not ahead.
So what do we do? The opposite. The way things have been going, we're on the brink of nuclear war.
Yeah, maybe. I don't think it'd be a nuclear war. Where's going to be a nuclear war? Maybe Russia? Is that what you're talking about?
No.
China?
No.
Iran?
Yeah, Israel, Iran.
But yeah, I don't think maybe. I don't think anybody's going to drop
can't.
Not nuclear war. Iran officially doesn't have any nukes, so it can't have a nuclear war. And maybe you could have a nuke in the Middle East somewhere, suitcase nuke, low yield, whatever. Going off maybe as part of a fall flag or something like that. Who knows? But you're not going to have nuclear war is between the major powers who have thousands and thousands of nuclear missiles. That's not Israel, and even though Israel has 400 or something nuclear missiles, it would only use one of them. If it was to use it, but only use it in the Middle East. So, and it was fine in the Second World War. They dropped 2 of them, Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and it was fine. Didn't bother anybody else. So you can drop a nuke here and there, you know what I mean?
No big deal.
No big deal, man. Take it easy, just a nuke. Jeez. Get over yourself, just a nuke, only one.
Yeah.
Do you think this secret state? This is effectively, you've articulated a secret state ideology of the American regime, because it is secret. That
except Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Yes, he articulated it.
So of all the rest, well,
no one has ever put it on paper.
But the fact that he can just spit it out like that means
or
that
stood up in front of the podium and said, "My fellow Americans, I hereby restate our state ideology." No,
you're not allowed to, because it doesn't sound very good.
No,
but it's an open secret.
If that secret is it the primary? Is it the core? Because I'm wondering. To uphold that American secret belief that everyone in DC knows, or whoever, everyone who's important knows, why does it necessitate 99 out of 100 senators basically being in their position they're in because they were elected by AIPAC in the last election cycle, which is obviously a lobby for that state over there? Surely they'd be elected by the secret cabal in the US who knows the secret, and this is why we have to keep going. Why does it need the workaround
of what?
It's like a laundered state ideology. It's bizarre to me, because this is where the Groypers make more sense.
Explain Groypers to people there.
They're people who believe that everything we've seen unfold in recent history has been to Israel's interest. and that along the way in using the United States to win those 7 wars, we'll see if they win the 7th. It's been in interest of Israel's agenda. So literally we saw that Syria fell, and that opened the skies in Syria for Israel to conduct airstrikes in Iran this week. So it's all a consequential, it's all a fit. So, and that I suppose in their conception of it, Israel isn't just the tip of the spear. Israel is the head of the beast. And that it has fully pathologized and parasitized the United States, such that 99 out of 100 senators are literally bought and paid for stooges of AIPAC. And so in that conception, Israel is the arbiter, it's the dominant, it's the power. It's not the tool of another power, the secret one with the secret state ideology that we don't see, but it's apparently everyone knows it, somewhere in the heartland of America. Maybe in Texas, or
it's both.
In underground bunkers in DC. But instead, the gripers would say, what's obviously in front of your eyes is what is. So Israel is the top dog. Israel, yes, it convinced Americans to commit a part inside job, part outside job, namely 9/11, to project its dominance around the world, and this would be for your benefit, America. But the gripers say, hang on though, watch what's actually statistically happened. The United States is now $40 trillion in debt. We have a massive mental health crisis. People are crying out for help. That's literally why they voted for Donald Trump. Like, oh my God, what the fuck's going on in this country? So that's a nationalist uprising to a foreign control of the United States. And it's a bit more than that, because a lot of them are American Jews, so they're also binational. But in their conception, that, like I said, they're not the tip of a spear that's wielded by the secret power in the US. They are the head of the...
Well, it's both. It's obviously both, like, you know? It's like, Total Recall, the movie Total Recall. Did you ever see it?
Yeah, many times.
You know who Quatu is?
Yes.
That's Israel. What do you call the guy? Don't know. You saw it a lot of times. Anyway, the guy who's the host for Quatu.
Yeah, I know.
That's America. And Quatu is Israel.
Yeah. We
nice now. Do you ever see it?
Once
Get a picture of it there.
ago.
We can get a picture up. It'd be probably the most anti-Semitic thing we've ever actually displayed on the show. Because
except Quatu was good in Total Recall. Let me
was
just
he?
point that out. Yes, he was.
Wow.
Because it was the evil guy that was trying to hold
okay, so he's evil Quatu.
Yeah.
So for it to be both, though, the 99 senators are taking the money not just to shield for Israel, but because in the secret state ideology, they're actually letting Israel take the outward blame for what are secretly their own wishes. So the United States actually wants Israel to attack Iran.
Yeah, those people.
Or
yeah.
to
and again,
regime change.
And again, the question is...
So the
Does
US,
Trump-
so
does
Iran
Trump
really
stand
is
in
an
the way?
enemy to the US elite.
Of course. They're not being coerced, like, in that respect, most of them.
But everyone, this is news to most people. The vast majority of the alternative views are that this is working because this is not the mainstream. This is the alternative view that Epstein-like compromat, blackmail, corruption, and other forms of parasitism and high finance are the substantial reason why those 99 senators are saying pray for Israel all at once.
No.
Not because they themselves... So they're all using boilerplate, go Israel, go give them hell messaging, which makes them look like they're fucking shields for Israel. But they're happily having it appear that way because actually their own secret state ideology is that they want Israel to regime change Iran.
Mm-hmm.
So that the US remains on top.
Yeah, of course.
And it won't be Israel coming out on top. Per se, Israel. Both together come out on top.
Yeah. That's pretty standard. Is that, do people not understand?
That's not standard.
That is
not standard.
Go and look on next. The
standard to
vast
me.
majority of the discussion out there is either, oh my God, how are we supporting Israel again? Or the ones with the answers that get the most likes and retweets are, I'm telling you, it's obvious. It's always been obvious. It's the Jews.
Yeah.
You've got one or the other. There is no other kind of thing where actually the American elites are more than happy for Epstein to have stuff on them because they don't care if the Mossad actually compromised them into saying yes and pray for Israel, because secretly they want this to happen.
Epstein, I don't think Epstein wasn't for congressmen and senators. Like, I mean, maybe the odd one, but that's different, right? I mean, but
so that's that kind of.
Yeah, but that's only for people who it's needed for, but it's not needed for most members of Congress and senators.
Right. Like, there are other avenues. There's religion. They believe that Israel has to be destroyed.
But that's what we're saying, right? Iran has to be destroyed. So what are you saying? That's basically what's self-evident, right?
I'm saying that what's self-evident, but we've only ever heard RFK articulate it.
No, but even if you don't have to have someone articulate it. It was nice to hear him articulate it, but it was something that I've known for 20 years. So have most other people who look at this situation.
But then
that America needs Israel. That the American elite, the American government has created Israel 80 years ago for this express purpose of controlling the Middle East, for creating the petrodollar and having the US as a world reserve currency and that way dominant in the globe. That's like 101 of geopolitics.
It's 101, then why was it so nice to hear RFK articulate?
Just to have someone actually say it. But it's 101 for anybody who reads the books.
Time in the last
a politician articulating it. But if you read any books, book reading and stuff, it's like if you read books on geopolitics, on American history, on the history of Israel and all that kind of stuff, and on the history of the past 80 years, it's in every single book. Historians and all that kind of stuff who have any sense, who aren't just establishment historians, who actually, I mean, am I in a different reality here? This hasn't been the meat and bone, the meat and potatoes of what we've been talking about for the past 15 or 20 years? That Israel is a project of America in the Middle East to control the Middle East and control oil and create the petrodollar
and America rules over Israel.
Of course. Yeah, well, it's become symbiotic eventually. I mean, you get it. You get a situation where it's kind of tiger by the tail, but it doesn't take too much thinking to realize that would evolve over 80 years. When you facilitate the creation of a nation state and then finance it to $3 billion a year every single year and make sure that your little project in the Middle East becomes a solid, well-established only democracy in the Middle East, because it has to be strong and stable in order to maintain your control over the Middle East via Israel in perpetuity. I mean,
but you have no control over their leaders.
Well, eventually it becomes kind of like
this is where
eventually it becomes obviously that kind of situation would become, especially when you're dealing with the Jews and the Israeli mindset, who don't trust anybody and think those damn guys are going to betray us like they've done throughout the centuries. Never again, must never happen again. And we don't trust those Israelis. And we're hearing some over the years since the creation of the state of Israel. We're hearing some rumblings or some murmurings among American politicians that those Israelis have too much influence and stuff. Holy shit, we need to make sure that we consolidate our pressure on them. I mean, and we can always just turn around and tell them, look, you created us, you need us, and they'll go, yeah, well, actually, you're right. But it's only been the odd politician, who, JFK being one maybe, whoever came up and said, look, there's a different way to run the world, or we don't need, basically our creation of the state of Israel has meant that there, has programmed into it the possibility or the likelihood of continual conflict in the Middle East over and over again, because basically we facilitated the creation of a state of Israel, a state for the Jews on land belonging to other people, surrounded by a few 100 million Arabs who all are in one way or another,
the thing is,
ideologically aligned with the Palestinians who had their land stolen for the creation of the state of Israel by America.
Is it possible though that's 50 years, 80 years ago? By now, Israel gets the US to do actions that are no longer actually in its national interests as well. Let me put it this way. Is Iran being regime changed? And if it takes an expensive bloody war to do so, is that in America's national interest?
Yeah. After
how the hell is Trump ever going to convince anyone of that? That it's in their national interest to do another Middle East war, a really bloody.
Well, that's why
the most bloody expensive.
But that's why his agenda, his peacemaker agenda, is to come in with a new way of doing business, which is business like it's a business, and just refer to his book, The Art of the Deal. I'm going to do some super great deals with everybody based on trade, and referring back to what do you call him, former president, who did imposed all the tariffs. It was the heyday of American.
McKinley.
Was it McKinley? Yeah, McKinley. Yeah, Mount McKinley. That was in line with him changing McKinley. So he wanted to be like McKinley because he read a book on McKinley, or read 2 pages of a book on McKinley or something.
Someone told him about it,
or someone he heard about McKinley, that he used tariffs and it was awesome. So he said, "I want to be like McKinley. I'm going to change the world. We don't need to." Trump. It's obvious that Trump's philosophy coming in was wars are no good. Wars are expensive. They kill people. He has a bit of a heart. He doesn't want to start any wars. He doesn't want to mass slaughter and death. And he figures, hey, simple. I'm a really good businessman. I've become very successful through the art of the business deal. So I'm just going to impose that philosophy on the world, on my administrations, and that's how we're going to get things done.
It's shot with Gaza.
What do you mean?
It's not that his. He did.
That's not his. That. No, he disavows any responsibility for stuff that has been going on and was a result of policies of previous administrations. Not his. He'll try and do what he can, and there's some things you just can't solve, and he have to work it out. I mean, he'll work on them all to the best of his ability, but at the end of the day, there's big issues here at play, and he's been informed by his advisors and all this kind of stuff about the threats from China and Iran unseating America as the global hegemon. And what are we going to do? Our policies so far have been, we have the biggest military on the planet. We, generally speaking, when we're faced with threats to our hegemony, we basically threaten them or regime change them or soft power them. And if that doesn't work, then we invade them. Mr. President, that's how we do things. That's how we've done things for quite a long time. That's our policy. We don't really, everything looks like a nail when we've only got one hammer, So, and Trump's like, well, I've got a better idea. I think we can do a lot of these things that you want done, i.e. securing America's interests in the world and making America great again, and improving the American economy, etc., through my awesome, huge, exceptional
tariffs,
art of the economic trade war deals. Don't need any shooting.
So if Trump wanted to make a deal with Iran, Israel bombing them nixes that.
Yes.
So
and Trump has to some extent own that.
Yes.
Because you can't admit to having lost control or not having the control that everybody thinks you have, or you claim you have over what should be your vassal state.
Exactly. Yes.
But it appears he has. Lost control.
Not
him personally. This happened long before.
He hasn't lost control. He has only lost control. He will only have lost control on the day that, for what reason, for one reason or another, or for whatever reason, America actually starts to attack Iran.
Okay.
Because that's his trump card, pun intended.
Yeah, he's literally advertised it before.
That's his trump card that he can, and that's his leverage. And he uses that. I'm going to bomb this country. I'm going to tariff this country. I'm going to do nasty things to all these different countries unless they make a good deal with me. And if you come and make a good deal, and we can work it out, and it'll be a fair deal. Nobody's going to be treated badly. But that doesn't suit the Israelis, because the Israelis don't trust the Iranians, and the Iranians are.
The Israelis don't trust the Americans.
Yeah, the Israelis don't trust anybody. But the Iranians are ideal. The Iranians are like the Russians. You could ask, why is Iran, like, look at all the other countries in the Middle East, okay, with the exception of Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq before it was invaded. They had to invade Iraq, and Iraq is still kind of on the fence. I mean, the other day, the Iraqi government
they told them they didn't want.
Asked.
Yeah.
Politely.
Asked the American government to stop.
Please don't.
Stop shooting down. Stop allowing Israeli airplanes to fly over our country, please.
To launch attacks on our neighbor Iran.
Yeah, exactly. So, but they're a bit toothless, the Iraqis, and that's a function of the 2003 invasion and the 10-year occupation and the legacy after that. Obviously, they left, but they didn't actually leave. They still have, they weren't about to just relinquish control of Iraq and let it fall back into Iranian hands, or fall into Iranian hands, or become independent. So Iran has been independentized. Syria has been jihadicized. Gaza has been genocided. Lebanon has been neutered. All because they were basically had either governments or groups within the government within the country, powerful enough groups that were independently minded. They basically didn't want occupation. They were just ideologues, basically.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care how
They
much
didn't
sense it makes.
The American way.
I don't care how much sense you think it makes or does make, or how many facts you can show me, whatever. We want to be independent. We don't want to just become part of the new American kind of century or part of the American. We don't want to be vassals, basically. We want to chart our own course. In the same way, so Iran is the last one standing in that respect. Obviously, the Gulf states they were all created, or they all were managed from the beginning. They failed. They made deals with America a long time ago. And so all the other independent states in the Middle East there have all been taken out by Israel with American support, but primarily with Israel, by Israel. Well, with a lot of American support in terms of Syria under Biden and Obama. But the only one that's left is Iran. So it has to fall as well, just because it's independently minded. And it's not willing, the government there and the mindset of the people. They're proud, they're Persians, they had an empire, all this kind of stuff. They're a big country, they have a lot of natural resources. They're not about to just... And it's not even that they want to screw anybody else over, screw America over. They simply want to be respected for the nation state they are, and their relative economic
so in a way then,
power.
The big, dark, ugly secret isn't that Israel/international Jewry controls the US. The big, dark, ugly secret is that the US will do whatever it takes to maintain hegemony. And you're arguing, and I believe you, is convincing that they have to. They have no choice.
Mm-hmm. We've talked about this before. In terms of the multipolar world and Halford, Mackinder and all that kind of stuff, goes back to then, It's all pretty self-evident,
They can make nice, no?
Who?
Americans.
Make nice? That's it. You should be present.
Like theoretically, and on the purely theoretical level, sure, there's ways of doing deals in business and restructuring the American economy, etc., of making it all work hunky-dory like, theoretically. But in the real world that we currently live in, America's fucked.
Yeah, because it has lived... Like, what you're proposing is that a person, and because you can see how technically people think it would work or whatever. There's a group of people around a table, and one person at the top of the table is massively obese because they've been eating all the 80% of the food for the past 50 years. And then hard times come, and there's a policy institute that, look, we all need to cut our rations. All the other people who have been surviving on smaller rations for all these years go, okay, well, we can probably do that. For the big fat guy, that feels like starvation. That's like, I'm going to die if you take that away from me. So that's the kind of position America's in, where it can't survive. And the bloated person is basically the American debt.
Mm-hmm.
And the free printing of dollars that they've been, the prolific printing of dollars that they've been engaged in for quite a long time to produce that national debt.
Well,
all that has to come home, and the issuing of dollars all around the world, and the dollar being the dollar being the reserve currency, it being basically America issuing dollars like pieces of paper, literally pieces of paper.
Not even pieces of paper; it's just zeros on a screen.
Right? Even numbers on a screen, and getting actual physical stuff in return for it. Here, I'll put some numbers on your computer screen, and you give me that chair you just made that you spent 2 weeks making.
No,
I get that, and you get my numbers on your screen. So the point is, all those numbers on the screen are technically, let's think of them as actual dollars. If they were no longer, if the American dollar wasn't the reserve currency, i.e., you didn't have to buy dollars to buy oil, etc., or primarily oil. If it comes down to oil, really, if you didn't have to, people have to actually buy dollars to buy oil, and to buy dollars first, and give America something for it, just to have those, say, their physical dollars, and then use those to buy oil. You can't buy oil otherwise. At least that's been the way it has been. As a result, America's printed shitloads of dollars because everybody wants these dollars because they're buying them. If that was no longer the case, if the American currency experienced some severe systemic problems and it was no longer desired by all these people. All those dollars in circulation come back home. You have hyperinflation.
Yeah.
Well, not
$50,000 for a loaf of bread.
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
Economy collapses.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody starves. Everybody takes a serious diet, and America falls down the ladder in terms of world power.
And that's why.
And they don't want to do. They don't want that.
It's
the Americans don't want that.
It like in the realpolitik of what would actually happen. That would be what would potentially happen. What could also happen is the American government consolidates the debt to the Bank of International Settlements. It prints it creates a coin that's worth, $40 trillion or however big, and then cancels it. And then it's all done. But the problem is...
No one's ever tried that. Go on, yeah?
But it's theoretically been done.
Yes.
Well, I don't know.
Theoretically. It's been
theoretically possible.
It's been war games.
And I think it has been done. I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to go back through the research, but it's...
I know you're thinking of Ellen Brown's book.
So...
I think, God bless her, she's an idealist.
So that's what I mean. Like, there's theoretical ways of doing things, but in the real world, those things exist for a reason outside of what we think. So it's not just that, we need to continue printing dollars so that the average American can live high on the hog. That was never the purpose. That was never the point of all of that.
It's the effect of it.
It was one of the effects of, but that was never the goal. The goal was to create a monster that controls the world.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to control the world anymore, you kill the monster.
But there's so many other countries that are exposed to the American economy and have a vested interest in the American economy not collapsing and the dollar not collapsing.
Too bad for them.
They hold so many. They hold so many dollars, or American treasury bonds, etc. That if the American economy tanked, then you have a bunch of other countries that would hit the floor. Basically, the world economy would go into free fall. And that's maybe the best way, and I think that's maybe not the best way, but that's possibly the only way that this situation can be resolved. At least some people may think, and there may be people in dark rooms smoking, like Smoking Man, that kind of person in the X-Files, that the way to resolve the American debt and to reset the chessboard and prevent Russia and China from taking over and taking America's place is to wreck the global economy and then have a restart from scratch where all debt is cleared because everybody's fucked, and you just start again with some kind of digital currency or something.
Yeah, I don't like that idea either.
No,
but I think that we can wreck the American economy only as part of this idea of changing the way the world works and having America join the so-called multipolar world. And if they... this is idealistic.
As a junior partner.
Yeah, and in the end, this isn't really an America First idea because it is hurting America to do it. But it is a thing that benefits the world much better if America stops trying to control and regime change other countries.
And part of what drives them to do it is an assumption that this is very much reminds me of the Israelis. Well, if I didn't steal their home. Yeah. So the assumption is we have to desperately hold on to it. Otherwise, China and Russia move in.
So what?
No, not so what. What evidence is there for that?
Yeah, they don't.
They're talking about multipolarity. They're not talking about actually it's just a code word for us becoming the new hegemons, baby. That's not what they're saying.
No.
No one's ever caught them on a hot mic saying that that's what they really think. There's also no evidence that is what. There's no historical precedent.
Yeah, exactly.
For them ever doing that either.
That's why I'm just like, well, why not try?
Why not try? And so here's the question: Is this desperation? It smacks of desperate. It seems desperate because we've had such a rapid succession of events in the Middle East from October 7th, let's just say in the last 3 years. Is this... I was going to say, is this to stave off multipolarity?
Yes.
But just as I thought the question,
It was.
I remembered
Until-
Rubio 5 months ago saying
it was until Trump came along.
we embrace multipolarity.
That's what they were. The invasion of Ukraine, the coup in Ukraine, 2014, was to do. Scotty, do you have that PDF? Okay, so this is Brookings Institute document written by a bunch of nerds, geopolitical nerds. Which path to Persia? Which path to Persia? How do we get that Persia thing? I'm after some Persia. You got any of that nice Persia? Which path should we take to get some nice Persia?
The high road or low
Options
road?
for a new American strategy toward Iran. This is 10 years ago. This was published. Just search for "Leave It to Bibi." Leave it. You just do a search on the screen, yeah. Leave it to, and do the next one so you get the actual. Go down to the chapter. Just hit it again, maybe. There you go. So, leave it to Bibi. Allowing or encouraging an Israeli military strike.
Who wrote this?
Brookings Institute.
Great.
Think tank. Scroll down to goal a little bit. It's all very interesting. It all basically just fleshes out exactly what you've been seeing over the past 2 years. The next heading is goal, I think. Yeah, goal. As in the case of American airstrikes against Iran, the goal of this policy option would be to destroy key Iranian nuclear facilities in the hope that doing so would significantly delay Iran's acquisition of an indigenous nuclear weapons capability.
Well, that's still propaganda level.
However, in this case, an added element could be that the United States would encourage the Israelis in conducting the strikes for themselves in the expectation that both international criticism and Iranian retaliation would be deflected away from the United States and onto Israel. The logic behind this approach is that allowing Israel to mount the airstrikes rather than the United States provides a way out of the dilemma described in the previous chapter, whereby American airstrikes against Iran could become self-defeating because they would undermine every other American initiative in the Middle East, an outcome exactly the opposite of what a new Iran policy is meant to accomplish. And do a search for those who favor. For those who favor. Maybe that's already in that one, is it? Well, that's the one we just looked at, right? Hang on.
Let's read it out, because that's inciting regime change in Iran would be greatly assisted by convincing the Iranian people that their government is so ideologically blinkered that it refuses to do what is best for the people and instead clings to a policy that would only bring ruin on the country. Now, this is NeoCon stuff 101.
Mm-hmm.
They will welcome us with open arms and roses. The ideal scenario in this case would be that the United States and the international community present a package of positive inducements so enticing that the Iranian citizenry would support the deal, only to have the regime rejected.
Yeah, and say they're the best way to minimize international opprobrium and maximize support, however grudging or covert, is a strike only when there's a widespread conviction that the Iranians were given whatever. Only when there's a widespread conviction that the Iranians were given, but then rejected, a superb offer. A huge offer, you might say. One so good that only a regime determined to acquire nuclear weapons and acquire them for the wrong reasons would turn it down. Under those circumstances, the United States or Israel could portray its operations as taken in sorrow, not anger. And at least some in the international community would conclude that the Iranians brought it on themselves by refusing a very good deal.
No.
Okay, that's fantastic on paper. What happened in practice is that 24 fucking hours before they launched, they got the IAEA to announce that they find that Iran is not in compliance with its obligations.
Which is what they did in Iraq.
The NPT.
In 2003 in Iraq.
If that's the ideal scenario, and look, the whole world can see,
and was that...
That's what there's a desperation. That's great in theory 15 years ago when they wrote it on paper. But how it actually was executed...
Because was it the Iranian information document dump that they got a hold of in the lead up to the event?
That's super interesting, because 24 hours before that, the Iranians hacked
the
Mossad or some intel source, and they found evidence that the IAEA, all these years, decades even, has been giving the names in Vienna to the Mossad and where they live, and has been targeting and assassinating on the streets in broad daylight Iranian scientists. That's interesting because Iran. It can't be coincidental that they got it one day and the next day the IAEA goes, Iran's naughty, and then the next day we're at war with Iran. Like boom, boom, boom.
Well, also that the IAEA chief was directly communicating with Israeli intelligence.
Well, that was the one who was, like he was saying, giving the Israelis the information.
Yeah, okay.
Was him.
This is where they live. Assisting assassination, but whether he did that wittingly or knew what would happen. But if you know you're talking to the Israelis,
and you don't think they're going to do something dirty with the information that you give them, then how the hell did you get to that position in the first place?
So I okay. In theory, in written in that document, massive inducements, a very good deal. The Iranian people rise up. Like, they won in Iraq. They got what they wanted because Iraq has de facto open airspace. Israel's using it right now to attack Iran. So in a sense, mission accomplished, right? W was maybe 10 years too early, but still, mission accomplished. But that took a lot of blood and treasure. And now Iran is 3 times the population of Iraq. It's not going to go as they think it's going to go. No. They can try, but it's going to be fucking mental. This is like the Ukraine scale war. Surely that's the only way they can.
They can't do a ground war in Iran. No, it's just not possible with the numbers of Iran's military. With Israeli? No,
the Israelis can't, but could the Americans?
No, they can't. Because that would probably cause other countries to get involved.
Right.
And then you'd be in a world war.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know. That's why this week is so shocking. There are people consciously, or are they so idiotic that they can't see like a few steps away?
I think so.
Is this the culmination of Brookings Institute papers of 50 years that they just went, well, number 7 on the list is Iran, so we got Syria taken care of. Well, let's do it.
The Iranian people have seen what has happened in all these other countries, right?
Yeah,
and they say, well, we don't want that to happen here. I don't care what you say or who you're going to bring in. We're not going to let you take over the country and change who our leaders are. It's too late for that.
Yeah.
The people, like there was one video that I saw of this woman in a large crowd of people, and I think it was after the first volley from Israel, but before Iran struck back. I think, I'm not 100% sure on it, but anyways, she was there and she was screaming like, if they're going to do this to us, then why don't we just build a damn bomb? And everybody around her is like, yes.
Yeah, I suppose the psychos are banking on, they're saying that now, but wait till we squeeze them a little. Iran has been the most sanctioned country on earth for 40 fucking years.
They've been squeezed a lot.
You get it wrong every time. It's like you can do that to a kind of... Depends on the population. Ultimately, when you've got an informed population, it's much more difficult. I mean, to regime change them or to do these kind of things that America has done to other countries. You need a soft, compliant, ignorant population, basically, who aren't well informed. The ones that are well informed, like you just said, the Iranians are well aware. They've watched, and that's a problem for any empire that tries in maintaining its empire, does these kind of carries out these coups and regime change and internal subversion, etc. In a particular region, other countries in that region, the people in it watch it happening and then they become informed as a result. So it's much harder to do it to them after you've done it to their neighbours. Did you see...
Thor in the chat says, Iran has a lot of mountains. It will be an uphill battle if they try.
Literally. Did you see? So Trump had a birthday yesterday,
Oh Lord,
The biggest birthday.
and it was the best
He looks sad.
military parade. Well, it must have been because of the state of that military parade. It wasn't actually a parade.
he
It was
didn't
a
even
few
have a smile on his
There was
face.
a few squeaky tanks
Yeah,
and a stage.
a bunch
Like
of
a
girls
with some people.
marching.
Yeah, no girls. Oh, there's some girls. Anyway, there
They
was
were all girls either way.
Well, don't want to misgender them,
Oh, yeah.
but they did look
girly.
girly.
Well, there's
Yes, exactly.
some people have done a bit of a parody on it. Just have it. Listen to this. See this one? This is China and Russia.
He don't look happy.
It's like, that's really lame.
It's Brian Piccolo.
My parade is super lame.
Brought to you by Coinbase.
You probably
Gross.
Coinbase.
It was so. I found somebody who had gone to the parade, documented a whole bunch of things, and apparently he says he had organized a similar, like a big event at the Mall of America there some weeks ago, and so he was commenting on it from that perspective of having organized a large scale event and so forth. And he said that this was such a shit show logistically that it was quite like flabbergasting. Apparently, they had like numerous checkpoints where people were supposed to be able to come in, but practically speaking, the way that they did it and they were telling people to go, it basically brought everyone into one of those entry points. And so they just had like a backlog of tens of thousands of people because they didn't, or when they gave people maps, the map is like unreadable.
Right.
You have no idea where you're supposed to go. And it was
sad.
a logistical shit show.
And this was not just Trump's birthday. It was like the 250th
Yeah.
birthday
Flag
of
Day.
like the army or something.
Flag Day. It's every year.
Is it?
Yeah. You know Flag Day? Why do I know more about your national flag day than you do?
I don't care about flags.
But do you have a flag?
No, I don't care.
He's
They're trying to make it illegal to burn the American flag. You know,
Oh, yeah?
it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
absolutely. It's
It's illegal to
covered in
burn
the first-
illegal to burn dollars.
What?
It's illegal to burn money, isn't it?
No.
Yeah.
I've seen it done in movies a lot.
And there was also
dollars.
so there were a lot of protests as well. No King,
Oh,
the No King protests.
King.
Although Christ is king, right?
He's the only king.
There you go.
no, that's anti-Semitic.
Oh, sorry.
Hmm.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Jordan Peterson.
Did
and
we
his
say Christ is
producer
king?
report.
We meant to say Christ is king.
Yeah. And this was, well, it was a lot of old people. It was quite peaceful. There was some, games on hand as well that you could play for the older people, and particularly the vent. This was for Trump-induced anxiety. You had to pay 5 cents, and this is what you got to do.
5 cents.
It's a bad Trump.
So this isn't satire.
No.
Shut up.
Sarah Trump-induced anxiety. This is at one of the protests.
This is boomer.
So they've embraced-
The
activity.
whole of the world online were like Trump derangement syndrome.
No, they've
but in
embraced it.
real life, they're like there is a syndrome.
Well, they've embraced it, yeah.
That's
They're not going to
boomers.
ridicule for it. They're going to embrace it.
It's old people.
Old people aren't happy about
What's
it.
wrong with them?
Yeah, I think Americans need some practice at parading. Well, what's with that march? Where is it the Biden march? They look like they shot themselves and they have.
Have
And
you
they're all
seen
out
that
of sync.
march
Have
like
they-
that?
Yeah.
Do they not learn how to march where you swing the arms
Probably
in
not.
sync?
No.
No.
To a beat.
No.
That isn't 101. I thought that was basic military training. You march in the morning,
Yeah,
jog maybe, but then go back to a march, a brisk march in
Yeah.
sync.
it's supposed to be.
Yeah, but they
But
didn't.
they all look like they've never done it before.
They couldn't organize that. America's not used to doing it. It was their first attempt. Okay, Russia and China and stuff have a lot of experience, but there are a few squeaky tank. The thing is, I think a lot of American material is overseas. like tanks and stuff. It's all, a lot of it's been maybe not a lot of it, but it's at least not available to be sent to Washington D.C. to roll down the streets. That would take a lot of organizing and stuff because shipping them over, and people weren't weren't. We're not doing that. That's too complicated. So most they got was this, which was the top right one. You click on it again, you get a bigger version.
Special thanks to our
Yeah.
Special thanks to our sponsor, Palantir.
Jesus. Yeah.
All safe under the watchful eyes.
But you see, if you go back to the beginning, yeah.
Special thanks to our
Look at those little squeaky tanks. Like, they're super small. That was it. It was like,
Those are like kids' tanks, right? That you
I
play
think
with?
so.
Brought to you, in my mind, I was
Tonka.
wondering what that going to
just-
happen, and it literally
I
brought
just
to you by Palantir.
Yeah.
Do you know where the boys who own Palantir were at this weekend? Stockholm for the Bilderberg conference. Peter Thiel and Alex Karp are at this year's.
Yeah.
Well,
Mix it
before we jump that,
Well, yeah, there's another one here. Did you?
I just sent him one that
Okay.
I wanted to show because it's so fucking sad.
Oh, yeah, we got drones.
Look at this. We got drones, guys.
This is how they fly.
This is how they fly. Woo.
Couldn't they actually have flown one? Surely they could have flown one and said, yeah, going like that.
There was one flying right above his
Yeah.
head. If they play
Okay.
it again,
There's one there.
if you look in the top leftish corner,
Okay, so they did have
it's
one.
there, but it's one.
Okay, and
It's one singular one,
And he's
and
holding-
the other guy's he's freaking walking down the street, holding it in the air,
Bouncing
like,
it up and down. Like it's flying.
This is what our drones do.
just a bunch of retards.
But that other one, Scott, I just sent you, it's a bit more, it's more evocative of the mood, and
That looks like a World War II
it is, yeah.
Sherman. Okay. A lot of empty seats.
It's just the empty bleachers and the squeaky tanks that
Yeah.
don't say
and those
greatest
apparently,
military on.
No, they don't.
those are
It doesn't really
apparently
scream that.
VIP bleachers.
Yeah.
Right.
So those aren't for public use; those are for VIPs.
So not
Where's the VIPs? Either they couldn't get to where they were supposed to go, or they didn't show up. Either way,
Well, it's DC and it's
It
Trump.
was like 4 p.m.
Don't
All
be
those
too-
VIPs were at home by then sleeping because they're boomers.
Don't be too down. I saw that guy's thread as well. He's a never Trumper.
well, yeah, no,
He
but
may be right about how it was organized as a shit show, but
Did you see
he's
Trump?
got an extra grind, you know.
Did you
well,
see,
no, but at least he was honest about it up front when he was, and the critiques are valid.
Did you see Trump's hot mic moment?
What did he
Have
say
a,
again?
have a listen.
Oh, yeah.
Are we close to seeing Mr. Kim here at the White House?
Could happen. I mean,
They talked about that yesterday
I would
with
have
Mike
him,
Pompeo?
I think it's something that could happen. Yeah. Hey, he's the head of a country, and I mean, he is the strong head. Don't let anyone think anything different.
Right.
He speaks, and his people sit up at attention. I want my people to do the same.
Well,
Mr. King, who?
Kim.
Kim of Korea.
So he wanted a military parade like Kim has and like Xi has and Putin
Yeah.
has, and he didn't get one.
Ridiculous.
And he also now wants, he's saying like the guy from Fox News was asking, we're going to see Mr. Kim here soon. He said, yeah, it's possible. And he said, he's a very strong leader and stuff. And, he has people, when he speaks, his people sit up to attention when he speaks. And he says, I want my people to do the same thing, which implies that his people don't. And by people, obviously, he means members of his government, cabinet, etc. Right? He's not talking about the people. He doesn't want to go out on a balcony and have like all 350 million American people all
But that,
cheer. What
ideally,
he wants
would-
is his government to sit up and pay attention to him, and he's lamenting the fact that they don't. So, and then you wonder whether or not why Trump was so kind of like all over the place about the Israeli attack, and whether he was involved, whether Americans were involved, or whether they weren't, and whether he was, doing a deal with, whether he was being deceptive or not deceptive. That's not how Trump rolls. Trump, I have to remember, Trump is going to be doing the art of the deal until he's no longer president, right? Everything is
strategic and big
art of
time
the deal,
for
right? And the way he's done it before, like I was talking about with tariffs and stuff, it doesn't involve being deliberately and obviously deceptive. It involves making a threat, implementing it, and then removing
walking
it back, and then going, now do you want to make a deal? Let's make a deal, and tries to make a deal. the way it played out on the Israel-Iran thing strongly suggests that Trump was not in control, basically, and he didn't. He told Bibi, like last Monday, supposedly told him, don't attack Iran.
Mm-hmm.
By Friday, Bibi attacked Iran, and then Trump had to own it, basically, like I said, because if he just
co-own it.
Well, he had to some extent. He couldn't. Yeah. Like, if you just think about it for a minute, it's not hard to figure out that Trump is not fully in control of this whole situation. He definitely was not in control in his first administration, and maybe has a little bit more control in this administration, but still, it's the deep state. It's the Washington establishment, and a president is ultimately just the president. Most presidents in American history, after JFK at least, were happy just to serve the official ceremonial role of being president and shaking hands and saying things and going around the country and then just doing whatever the intel agencies and deep state wants them to do. Trump comes in and says, no, I want to be president. I want to actually exercise the powers of the office of the president. And then he realized that, well, he doesn't have all the cards. And that's entirely understandable because there's a massive monolithic establishment that is populated by career bureaucrats, some of whom have been there for 40 years in the intel agencies, in Congress, and in other areas of government, and they run the country. And you don't just walk in and take over. You don't just walk into Mordor.
One doesn't
just walk into Mordor.
Here's something else he's had to walk back. Even on the domestic front, never mind the Middle East, economic reality has hit, and ICE has been directed by the White House to pause immigration arrests at farms, hotels, and restaurants because they realized that the key sectors of hospitality and agriculture would take a massive hit.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to pay American salaries.
Right.
Because they can't.
Yep. No.
They can.
Can't. It's not. It would involve a lot of pain that no one's willing to pay down. In the short term.
Yes.
Maybe Trump hears, well, our projection, sir, is maybe in 3 years we'll see the dividends, and he's like, well, shit, by then I'll have taken all the flack. Oh fuck, pause it. You know what I mean? No one wants to like.
Well, the whole idea that like, oh, these are jobs that no American wants to do, and we can't do that because then nobody's going to do it. It's like Americans will do it. You have to be able to pay them a living wage to do it. And I mean, immigrants can live a lot cheaper ways, especially now when you can bring them in during Biden regime and they get freaking credit cards, to use. And so the regular Americans are like, wait a second, why don't I get anything like that? But we're barely surviving here. And these companies, they don't want to pay people enough for them to survive, especially now with like housing and the cost of goods going up and everything. It's like, it's not about Americans not wanting to do it.
It's the same thing with the H-1B visa situation. The whole point was to drive down wages. Mm-hmm. To some extent, and this is something that we had talked about last time, or a previous time, was the H-1B visas were to drive down the tech workers' salaries in order to be able to control and make more money. Similarly, the illegal immigrants are doing something similar. Because we have such a flood of cheap labor, obviously you're going to use that, but that drives the wage labor prices down, which doesn't benefit the American people. It benefits the people who own these companies. Now, you could make a case that you need some, which America has used in various cases. I'm thinking specifically of the Chinese when they built the Transcontinental Railroad, as an example. But do you need 50 million of them?
People say, oh, you're not going to have anybody to make the roofs of the houses or to farm the lands. It's nonsense. There's plenty of Americans that'll work in construction, but you can't pay them like barely enough to get by.
Because some of the guys that will work on these farms, the Mexicans that will work on these farms, you'll see them going to work. It'll be a bus. It'll be a bus load of them. So like 70 of them in a bus. And then when they're done they go back to their place where they're sharing the room with 10 other guys.
Yes.
Like, no American is going to live like that.
Exactly.
And the only reason that they're doing it is because they're not making a livable wage either, but they're sending money back to Mexico or wherever it is, which is why you saw the remittance rate drop dramatically in the past couple of months after ICE started cracking down, and then all of a sudden millions just stopped flowing.
Well, all that is to say, that article is about businesses putting pressure on the Trump administration because they don't want to pay Americans a good wage. They want their profits to stay up by paying illegal immigrants.
Did you guys mention last week that the female, is she the wife or the owner herself of the Walmart group? Or she's the heir? I can't remember her name, but her name is on the papers for funding the No Kings movement.
No.
She's behind the anti-immigration protest.
She would be the heir.
In part, at least. What Walmart? This is Walmart saying back to Trump.
Yeah.
No, they're coming in. They're not going home. We need them.
Yeah.
So yeah, the two go in hand. But apparently pressure's working. Now, that article we had up was suggesting that the White House is agreeing to this because they're seeing the numbers and we'll have a shortfall in labor.
Yeah. But this is all like a lot of these things that get thrown around just reminds me of Bukele when they told him, no, you can't do that because it'll tank the economy.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
I'm with that. Let's just try it.
Yeah.
We know what happens if we don't.
Right.
So let's just see what happens if we do.
And yet Trump caved.
He did.
For now.
It's unfortunate.
Caved to who?
The business leaders.
Well, he's got paws on
he's gonna pause
ICE arresting people.
Getting rid of the...
Yeah, but he likes a good watermelon, like. You know what I mean? A nice cheap watermelon.
Does that mean, by the way, I didn't notice, have the protests stopped or gone away?
In LA?
Yeah.
For No Kings?
Yeah.
Or in general?
It just was yesterday, so...
The Mexican Revolution in LA?
Yeah, I don't know. It's been wiped off the headlines.
Yeah, my mind was preoccupied.
Did you see? Well, here's the art of the deal, right? In the headline. There you go. This is from today, 1 hour ago. ABC News.
It's possible.
Trump says it's possible US gets involved in the Israeli conflict. Trump said he's open to Russian president. Oh, that's the wrong one. I think on Israel's latest attack on Iran, I think they were very devastating. It was very devastating. They were hit also, but it was very devastating into Iran primarily. Good job. How old is he? Will the US get more involved in the conflict? We're not involved in it. It's possible we could get involved, but we are not at this moment involved.
It's more art of the deal.
That's meant to, that's to say to the Iranians,
we haven't decided.
Make a deal, or we might get involved. That's like saying to the Chinese, make a deal, or we'll impose, 500% at one point tariffs, 500% tariffs on all their products, and then claims that he's done it, and then China just goes, I don't know. And Trump says, okay, since you said, I don't know, we'll remove the tariffs down to 10%. Done. Deal done. Art of the deal complete. So he said this about Iran. I don't know, Iran, we might get involved. We might have to, bomb you and stuff. And Iran's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. I've decided not to.
I've given a lot of thought.
Part of the deal.
A lot of thought.
But Iran has been shaken to their core.
They respect me, They respect me over
now.
There. Now you people, you Americans, the fake news over there, they don't respect me. Iran respects me.
The Ayatollah, okay? The Ayatollahs have a great relationship. Great relationship with them.
I just bombed him, but
he's dead.
He loves me.
His last words were, I respect you.
Yes.
Which I thought was nice.
I killed him, but he respects me for that. Yeah, so Trump's an enigma. He's proven to be
Did you see this thing
really-
about these assassinations in Minnesota?
Yeah, by the former Tim Walz staffer.
Was he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's bizarre.
Yeah,
RT's
he
making
walked
hay
up
with
to
this.
the house in like a mask, not a Jason mask. Some people are calling it a purge mask, which is a movie. And because the Democrat that was killed, she had just voted across party lines with the Republicans in the state's Senate, I think, or House. I'm not sure which one.
Don't think it's. Yeah, that's part of it, but it's weirder than that. So the RT write-up says a gunman dressed as a U.S. cop.
Yeah, he did have
flak jacket,
including having a cop car.
Really?
Yeah,
but he was a member of a group that actually officially have that kind of.
I was part of. He was security. He worked for private security.
It's an unmarked car that looks like a police car.
Okay. What's really weird? So this isn't. This is for non-Americans. This is a state politician. Yeah. So a Democrat lawmaker in the state of Minnesota. And her name is Melissa Hortman, and her husband. So this was in the middle of the night 2 nights ago. So they're sleeping, I guess, or whatever. Tim Walz, who's the governor of the state, has already described it as an active target of political violence, which, like Bo said, it is what it looks like. It's the suggestion is it's someone disgruntled with how she voted on immigration or abortion.
No, it was
healthcare. Sorry,
healthcare for illegals.
Okay, and therefore he's angry. But it sounds a bit more premeditated than that, because Hortman and her husband were shot in their home in a suburb of Minneapolis, while Hoffman, who's a different politician, and his wife were shot approximately 5 miles away.
And they survived.
They're alive. But if you scroll down, the only reason they made it is because the police were called to the first house around 2 a.m. Upon arrival, they found him and his wife shot multiple times, but alive. So I guess they're the two that made it.
Yeah.
That couple was rushed to hospital. And then the officers decided to check in on other local lawmakers. And it's at that point, at 3:30 in the morning, that they arrived at the other house and found another politician and her spouse dead.
So very weird.
Some
people are comparing it to like Luigi Mangione kind of situation.
Yeah.
Because she was voting on this healthcare situation.
And so they've got the suspect. No, they haven't got him. They've ID'd him.
Yeah,
but he's that large.
Yeah, they haven't found him yet.
Which is similar to Mangione, because there was a few days lull.
I think so, yeah.
And then they said, we got him in McDonald's with the backpack, and it said inside a note written in the backpack, I did it.
Yeah. Ridiculous. He's going to go to McDonald's after he did that. Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's getting really weird, man. Do American politicians get assassinated on regular life like that?
No.
It's
not right.
So 2 in one night?
Well, it's weird. It's very, very weird.
Your heads of state do, but once every few decades. But
yeah,
the state lawmakers, you don't ever see really anything like that, as far as I can recall.
No.
Okay, so a personal grudge could be, but 2 in one night. Yeah, I mentioned it earlier. So the Bilderbergers are meeting in Stockholm. The Bilderbergers. That's
sounds like a good restaurant. Build a burger.
I'd like to build
there is no such thing as Bilderbergers.
I would like to build a burger, please.
The guys who sponsored Trump's parade, Thiel and Karp, were there. They have a list of the topics they discussed. Which, at least they disclose something. The topics for discussion this year: transatlantic relationship, Ukraine, U.S. economy, Europe, Middle East, authoritarian axis, defense innovation and resilience, AI, deterrence and national security, proliferation of what? Geopolitics of energy and critical minerals, depopulation and migration.
I'm just putting it out there.
Depopulation of where? In what context?
Well, if you want to be generous, you could say the decline of native population birth rates and the need to replace them with migrants in order to keep your economy running.
Well, it's either that
or
it's global depopulation.
Yeah.
But either way, the cat is out of the bag. It can only be one or the other. Because if it's the first, which I presume is the less evil scenario, then the great replacement theory is not, in fact, an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. It's true. I think it's still ongoing. I think it's a weekend affair, isn't it? Shea Bowles writes that NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte is there. Oh, Jesus. Ryanair CEO Michael O'Leary. Microsoft chief. Santander, which is a Spanish bank.
Is the Boeing CEO there, or you can show everybody how not to build a plane?
Yeah. Do we suspect anything? What do we think happened?
Engine failure.
Por qué?
Engine failure.
Failure.
That's kind of what it looks like right now. Yeah. The electrical,
is that like resulting from a general power failure, or it can be the engines, just the engines that go?
General, well, complicated. Don't know why the engines actually failed, but it's most likely it's because it's just like didn't have any power and just
yeah.
Then the little what called a rat thing.
Yeah, the Ram Air Turbo or something
Ram
like
Air
that. Turbine.
Basically a little propeller that comes out underneath the plane whenever you lose complete power to provide minimal hydraulic and electrical power for to be able to
except if you're taking off. Yeah.
But if you're right above the ground, it's too late, But yeah, it's a Boeing problem.
Yep. It's just Boeing is like it's related to like that whistleblower for Boeing that was suicided and who talked about all the shortcuts they were taking and building cheap planes basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so like the Dreamliner's engines are all connected to the electrical systems. That's what runs the engines. And
are they powered by solar?
No. Maybe they would have made it then because it was pretty sunny that day, but it doesn't seem like it was any suspicious stuff going on there. Who knows, but it seems like it was a pretty standard case of malfunction.
Would you say most civilian aircraft in the US are Boeing?
Yes.
Oh,
I was just on a plane.
And the older, the better.
I was just
if
on
it's
a
a
plane,
new one, you're like, no, thanks.
I was just on a plane that had electrical issues, and
mid-flight.
I got on the plane and like the screens where they give like the safety instructions, they weren't working, which is already weird. And then like I have a seat screen that's not on a seat, so I got to pull it up after we take off, and that didn't work. And the charger for like charging your devices didn't work. And
you stayed on the plane?
Well, we were already up in the air.
All right.
And obviously this plane hadn't crashed yet, so it didn't really connect with me. I went back to flightaware.com to look, and I couldn't find whether I was on a Dreamliner or not. I didn't look before.
Okay.
But it was interesting anyway.
That was a Dreamliner?
I couldn't find it because it was too late when I checked. You couldn't look back far enough. It might have been a 787 Dreamliner. I don't know. I'm not flying back on a Dreamliner, though. I know that.
You're not?
No. Even if I was, I wouldn't.
6:30.
Yeah.
All right.
Done.
Done. Yeah. So hold on to your hats because If it's a drawn out, protracted thing, then okay, the world will get steadily more chaotic and penurious for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So I suppose the best possible outcome here is just a phase shift into things getting shittier for all of us economically. Or this could happen very quickly, relatively quickly. Maybe it would be merciful to just, settle it as soon as possible, one way or the other. But
Trump's going to settle it. He's already told them to make a deal, and they're going to make a deal.
He's getting that Nobel Peace Prize.
Folks, there you have it. A prognosticator
has prognosticated.
People are going to be disappointed that there's no Armageddon. Both Iran and Israel will realize that without American involvement, it's not going to go anywhere. And
so no regime change.
No, they're not going to be able to.
No.
So
return to the status quo. Roughly.
Yes. And let's find some way to justify it. Israel will say they won, Iran will say they won, and everything will go back to normal until something else comes along. Hope you enjoyed the show. Well, we'll see. It might last a few more days, whatever, but that's just one prognostication. I've got other prognostications as well.
Yeah.
Don't want to commit to just one.
No. I want to keep your options open.
Yeah.
One of them is that Israel wins. It seems unlikely, though, given the scale of Iran. I mean, it's a different beast.
Given what they're trying to do in the context that they're trying to do it.
They got Syria after 10, 15 years of weakening it, but they're starting from scratch, more or less, with Iran.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, no Armageddon. Sorry. Not yet.
Yeah, people
have to suffer through
Armageddon.
This clown shit show for another
more suffering is needed
years yet.
Of other types. And just remember, before you judge somebody, walk a mile in their shoes. That way, you're a mile away and you have their shoes.
All
right. We're going to leave there for this week, folks, because I don't know how we got to 6:30. Was that like 2 hours and 20 minutes or something? Except with a lot of chipmunks at the beginning. I don't know how long the chipmunks lasted, but
don't worry, it'll be an hour and a half show by the time I'm done with it.
You have to slow it down. Okay, so we'll leave it there for this week, folks. We'll probably be back next week unless Armageddon happens, in which case we'll all have been raptured. And we won't
Jesus
be here
comes
next
again.
week. Jesus on a cloud. Christ on a cloud.
And the Jews converted.
The Jews will have converted to Christianity.
Ben Shapiro will be Christ is King.
Ben Shapiro will be a Catholic.
Doing a podcast again with Candace.
Yes.
It'd be great, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, exactly. So, But, if Armageddon doesn't happen, we'll be back next week with another show. So, thanks for listening and watching, and have a good week, and we'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.
Peace.